The Firebringer's Gambit. Why we watch Bezos's next move. Let's start with a name. A big, theatrical name. Project Prometheus. It sounds less like a business plan and more like a movie title. A stoic hero punching an asteroid. That, of course, is the point. A man with Scrooge McDuck-level money announces a plan to go to space. He doesn't call it logistically sound Orbital Initiative 7. He calls it Prometheus. He's not just building rockets, he's bringing fire from the gods. Because he's Jeff Bezos, people lean in. The scale is immense, the ambition is biblical. The man signing the checks has already reshaped life on Earth. Not just a rich hobby, a fundamental shift. For decades, the cosmos was the playground of superpowers. Nations planted flags on the moon. Now the game has changed. The new space race runs on private capital, not Cold War paranoia. It moves faster. It takes bigger swings. Project Prometheus embodies this new era. A multi-billion-dollar bet, private company where only governments tread. Its ambition, its technology, it's an astronomical amount of cash, all wrapped in a shiny mythological bow. The name does heavy lifting. Prometheus Titan who stole fire and changed humanity. The branding is brilliant, if on the nose. It frames the mission as a noble gift. It promises transformative power. The narrative is compelling. It turns engineering and dry financials into a heroic quest. It makes us feel like we're witnessing history. But stories can distract from messy details. The details are the real story. Beyond myth and press conferences, there is work. The unglamorous part. Thousands of engineers hunched over screens. Metallurgists testing alloys in labs. Lawyers navigating treaties and airspace rules. The vision sits on a mountain of paperwork. Endless meetings. Countless failed tests. That contrast, epic story versus grinding reality, is what makes Project Prometheus fascinating and vital to understand. It's complex. Section 2. Myths versus missions. Deconstructing the grand narrative. Old stories are powerful. They give us a framework for understanding the world. The myth of the explorer, venturing into the unknown for the good of all mankind, is one of our most cherished. We see it in tales of Columbus. We see it in tales of Magellan. We see it in tales of the Apollo astronauts. Project Prometheus deliberately taps into this vein. It presents itself as the next logical step in that grand tradition. The goal, the story goes, is to open up a new frontier, not for one nation, but for everyone. It's a beautiful idea. It's also a very carefully constructed piece of public relations that deserves a closer look. The problem with myths is that they simplify everything. They have clear heroes and vague obstacles. A real mission, on the other hand, is staggeringly complex. The stated goals of Prometheus are a perfect example. One goal is scientific discovery, learning about the origins of our solar system. Another goal is resource acquisition, mining asteroids for precious metals. A third goal is planetary redundancy, creating a backup for humanity. Each of these sounds noble and straightforward. But in reality, each is a monumental undertaking with its own set of technical, financial, and ethical minefields. Technical, financial, ethical. This is where we must separate the story from the strategy. The story inspires, the strategy executes. The story talks about saving humanity. The strategy involves developing closed-loop life support systems, which is the deeply unsexy process of figuring out how to recycle astronaut urine into drinkable water. The story talks about an endless bounty of space resources. The strategy involves designing robotic mining equipment that can operate in a vacuum at temperatures of hundreds of degrees below zero. The engine room, technology timelines. Tremendous risk. At the heart of Project Prometheus is a collection of breathtakingly difficult engineering challenges. This isn't like building a better website to sell books. This is about defying gravity and surviving the most hostile environment known to man. The plan requires not just one technological leap, but a whole series of them. First, you need new rockets, not just bigger rockets, fully reusable rockets that make orbit routine and affordable. This alone is a monumental task with decades of mixed success. It's the foundational pillar for everything else. Next on the shopping list, in-space manufacturing, power generation. You can't build a moon city by shipping every nail from Earth. Factories in orbit, factories on the lunar surface. Use local materials to build structures, tools, replacement parts. To run them, you need power. Lots of it. Hyper-efficient, radiation-resistant solar panels, or small, safe nuclear reactors in space. Technically daunting and regulatorily fraught. Each is a multi-decade project. Then the human factor, maybe the hardest problem. Keeping people alive, healthy, and sane in space. Self-sustaining habitats that produce food, scrub air, recycle water with near-perfect efficiency. Counteract bone density loss, muscle atrophy. Protect from constant solar radiation. Technical term, life support. Really? Building a tiny, perfect, self-contained Earth in a lethal vacuum. The timeline is, to put it mildly, optimistic. Roadmap, robotic missions, human settlements decades out. But space mocks timelines. One failed launch can set programs back years. An unexpected solar flare can fry a billion-dollar satellite in an instant. The risks are enormous, not just financial. A catastrophic human failure could halt the enterprise. This is the brutal calculus. Immense potential rewards, but the price of a single mistake is absolute. So that's the reality. Follow the money. The economics of a celestial enterprise. Let's talk about money. Because without a truly staggering amount of it, Project Prometheus is just a collection of very pretty PowerPoint slides. The funding for this endeavor is private, stemming from the colossal fortune of its founder. This is both a strength and a weakness. Private capital can be patient. It can invest for the long term without needing to answer to quarterly earnings reports or fickle public opinion. It can fund risky, paradigm-shifting research that a publicly traded company, obsessed with its stock price, would never touch. This financial freedom is what allows Prometheus to even exist. However, even the deepest pockets have a bottom. Private funding is not infinite. At some point, the project must demonstrate a path to profitability. Stop being a cost center and start generating revenue. This is the great challenge for any commercial space venture. The potential revenue streams are varied, but all are speculative. They include things like launching satellites for other companies, selling data from Earth observation sensors, space tourism for the ultra-wealthy. These are near-term goals designed to keep the lights on while the bigger, more ambitious parts of the plan are developed. The long-term economic case is far more exotic. It rests on the idea of an entirely new space-based economy. One of the central pillars of this vision is asteroid mining. Asteroids are believed to be rich in valuable resources, platinum group metals that are rare on Earth, water ice that can be broken down into hydrogen and oxygen for rocket fuel. The idea is to create a cosmic gas station, allowing rockets to refuel in orbit instead of lifting all their fuel out of Earth's powerful gravity well. This would dramatically lower the cost of exploring and operating throughout the solar system. But the path is long, treacherous, and paved with financial risk. The initial investment required to develop the technology, identify a target asteroid, send a robotic mission, bring back resources. And there is no guarantee of success. The project could spend billions only to find that the process is technically unfeasible or that the market for space-based resources doesn't materialize as hoped. This is the core gamble of Project Prometheus, that the upfront costs, as massive as they are, will one day be dwarfed by the value of the new economy they create. The human element. Who wins, who loses, who decides? Beyond the rockets and the balance sheets, Project Prometheus is a human story. And like all human stories, it will create winners and losers. For a start, a project of this magnitude is a powerful engine for job creation. It requires an army of scientists, engineers, technicians, support staff. These are high-skilled, high-paying jobs that can revitalize local economies. The technological spin-offs alone could be immensely valuable, leading to innovations in medicine, materials science, computing. This is the utopian side of the coin. But there is another side. Large-scale industrial projects always have a local impact. A new launch facility can bring noise, traffic, and environmental concerns. Communities can be disrupted. Land prices can skyrocket, pushing out long-time residents. There are also opportunity costs to consider. When billions are poured into a speculative space venture, that is money not spent on immediate problems, healthcare, education, climate change, the most critical question is one of power and equity. Who will own resources mined from asteroids? Who will control infrastructure built in space? The stated goal may be to benefit all humanity, but the structure is that of a private corporation. Will the fire of Prometheus be a public utility or a proprietary product with a subscription fee? These are practical questions of governance. They will determine if space is an open frontier for all or a gated community for the few. This is where transparency becomes non-negotiable. It must be held accountable by humanity. We need to know who is making decisions and by what criteria. We need to see environmental impact assessments. We need a public conversation about the ethical framework that will govern this new domain. Governance in the void, rules for a new frontier. Space is often called the final frontier, which sounds romantic. But another way to say that is a giant, ungoverned space with no clear laws. The existing legal framework for space, primarily the 1967 Outer Space Treaty, was written during the Cold War. It's a product of its time. It states that space is the province of all mankind. It also says celestial bodies cannot be claimed by any single nation. It's an idealistic document. But it's unprepared for a private corporation wanting to mine an asteroid for profit. The law is playing catch-up to the technology. This legal vacuum is a major non-technical risk for Project Prometheus. Who grants the license to mine the moon? Who is liable if a private rocket crashes and scatters debris over another country? What happens if two companies from different nations both claim the same resource-rich crater? These questions don't have clear answers yet. The project is forcing the world into a difficult conversation about property rights and jurisdiction in space. Governments are not just on the sidelines. They act as regulators. They act as partners. They act as customers. Agencies like NASA provide technical expertise and share research costs. Governments set safety standards that private companies must follow. Those standards ensure rockets don't threaten people on the ground, and they ensure rockets don't endanger other satellites in orbit. Governments will have to come together to write new space laws. The challenge: craft rules that encourage private innovation without sacrificing public safety or the idea of space as a global commons. That creates a delicate dance between private speed and public oversight. We need a system that can move quickly enough to match technology, but thoughtfully enough to get the big questions right. This isn't just rules for one project. It's writing the constitution for our future in the solar system. That task cannot be rushed or left to a handful of corporate lawyers. A story half written, the promise and peril of Prometheus. So, what are we to make of Project Prometheus? On one hand, it is an audacious, inspiring, and technologically magnificent endeavor. Audacious, inspiring, technologically magnificent. It represents a belief in the power of human ingenuity to solve immense problems. It has the potential to push the boundaries of science, create new technologies that improve life on Earth, open a new chapter in our species' long story of exploration. The promise is dazzling. A future where humanity is no longer confined to one planet, with access to new resources and a new perspective on our place in the cosmos. It's a story of hope, and we could all use some of that. On the other hand, it is a high-stakes gamble, funded by private wealth, operating in a legal gray area with profound implications for society. It raises difficult questions about inequality, resource allocation, and corporate power. The risk is that we could end up with a future where the heavens are owned and operated by a tiny elite, deepening the divides that already exist on Earth. The story could easily become a cautionary tale about unchecked ambition and the privatization of our shared heritage. The peril is just as real as the promise, and it would be foolish to ignore it. In the end, Project Prometheus is neither a guaranteed utopia nor a certain dystopia. It is a tool. Like the fire in the original myth, it is a form of power. And like any power, it can be used to build or to burn. The outcome is not predetermined. It will be shaped by the choices we make along the way. It will be determined by the level of scrutiny we apply, the hard questions we ask, and the standards of transparency and accountability we demand from those leading the charge. The project's success should not be measured solely by whether it reaches the moon or Mars. It should be measured by whether it lifts all of us up. The story of Prometheus is still being written. We are all characters in it, whether we realize it or not. We can be passive spectators, content to watch the show and marvel at the spectacle. Or we can be active participants. We can engage with the issues, demand a seat at the table, and help shape the rules for this new frontier. The future of our relationship with space is being decided now in boardrooms, in labs, and in public debate. The fire is coming. We have to decide what we're going to do with it.